Nothing fancy today. I just wanted to do, let's just do the basic check-in. You know, intentions and distractions. Nate, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, intentions are to go over the Schelling Point initiative with everyone, and distractions currently none. Quiet house this morning, so it's really cool. And I'll pass it over to Bear.
Thank you, Nate. Um, so intentions, yeah, also to listen in and participate on providing any feedback I can about the Shilling Point initiative, and also showing and trying to bring a little more clarity in terms of the budget for February. I think we're getting closer to being in a good place. So I think that will be important. And no distractions right now. I'll pass it to Bianca.
Thank you, Bear. Intentions for today is to catch up. It's been a while that I haven't been in this meeting. So I just want to catch up on everything and help as I can. And distractions, I don't know if you can hear from my voice, but I have a little bit of cold and sore throat. But I guess that's about it. I'll pass it to 10.
Hey everyone, intentions are just to see where I can help out and contribute, continue moving things forward. And I have no distractions, totally present. And I will pass to Marathon Mind.
Hey everyone, intention was just anything specific about content curation service. That's it. Distractions, none. I'll pass it on to Joseph.
Intentions are to continue to work with Nate with regards to the SPI documentation. I've been providing like feedback about what I've read, and just continue helping him in that document, and then seeing where else I can help. Distractions. I'm going to be changing my apartment soon, moving to a different side of the city, so that's kind of a bit of a distraction. But apart from that, thanks. I think I'm going to pass it on to NT.
Thanks. I guess just a regular intentions and distractions, right? Okay. Well, intentions. I'm really looking forward to hearing all the updates on the agenda. Distractions, none at the moment. Back to you, Gideon, because I'm not sure who's left.
Sure. Thanks, Enti. Yeah, so my intentions, I am looking forward to talking about the Shun Point initiative and also just talking about where we're headed with the monthly priority process. I think that's going to be, I think we made some really good progress over the last week or so. And no distractions right now. Empty house. Rex was going to give us an update on some stuff. He hasn't showed up yet, so if he comes in later, we may take a little break and get his updates then. Curation service update. Enti, I don't know if you saw. Did you see the note from Shahar?
Yep.
Do you want to just give folks just a quick update on that, like where things are?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so Shahar this morning dropped a message saying that the service is finally on. So we have the bot working. It should be messages that are on our server should be starting to appear on the Airtable, which is quite nice. And they seem to they have a new guy, Rushdie, I think it's his name, and they seem to be advancing on some work. So the integration with the academy seems a bit closer now. And then they also advance a bit with Algovera. So there's probably some more interesting work coming up soon.
Thanks, NT. Yeah, the Algovera stuff is sometime in the next couple of weeks we may take some time to talk about this because it's actually I think the most exciting aspect of curation service, its potential. And basically, Algovera is doing a lot of work with GPT-3, and well, they're basically focused on AI and AI data, machine learning data. And one of the scenarios, use cases that we're talking about is using the curation service as a way to select a pool of content resources that then can be used to tweak the model, and then also as the actual resources that the chat bot can use to answer questions. So the idea would be, one of the problems with ChatGPT is that not really sure how good the quality of the content is that it's drawing from, and so the idea would be to use the curation service as the way to have a bunch of token engineering professionals and students basically verify like this is good quality data, and then use that pool of resources as the source that ChatGPT would use. So kind of cool if we can make it work. And so they're doing some integration work in Notion. So exciting. That's kind of exciting. One thing on this meeting, what we're thinking is we want to get some feedback on this, but as part of some work that Tam and I are doing, and Tam is really going to be leading the way on this, basically helping us to build a group of advisors who would then plug into these meetings, trying to figure out what the frequency of that would be. But what we're thinking in the meantime is that, so this meeting, rather than having this meeting every Tuesday, that what we would do is do it twice a month. So do it every other Tuesday, so that we have like a pretty decent set of things to make sure that we can all chat about. And that way, you've got the coordination teams meeting that's happening every Thursday for 2 hours, and that's where we're like moving forward on a lot of more like hands-on stuff. And then these meetings become kind of more like direction setting and thinking big picture stuff. So I would like to just open that up and just get people's thoughts, Mitch, Tam, Bianca, you in particular. Does a bi-weekly rhythm, does that seem okay to you guys? Does that seem good or bad, or what do you think?
I am
I think
distracted.
it makes sense.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim or Bianca.
Thank you. I was gonna say it makes sense. If you're feeling that like not a lot of people are coming to the call every Tuesday, I haven't been in this call for a couple of weeks. I think 2 or 3 weeks now. So yeah, I think I like that idea.
I guess I just don't have a full sense of the bigger picture. If it feels like that there's no, I mean, I would go by our sense, and if we're sensing that, at the end of this hour we end early and there's not enough to talk about and it's not useful, then I would certainly support a biweekly cadence to this meeting. But it hasn't been my sense that this meeting isn't that useful every week so far. So perhaps that's my observation. That it has seemed to be very useful every week so far.
I agree with Tam on that, actually. I think, if some people can only make it every, twice a month, that's fine. But, I do think we cover a good amount of stuff and kind of get the bigger questions answered in this call, which is really nice.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good feedback. It's good to hear. Yeah, actually, I feel less this way right now than I did like 3 weeks ago or so, or actually in December, where it felt like sometimes I was really struggling to be able to pull an agenda together for this one that was like a meaningful agenda. But that hasn't been the case lately, and it's so. Why don't we we'll just keep going as is, and just know that we have the option to drop back to biweekly if we find that this we don't have enough material to keep these really meaningful. So,
Yeah, I'd like to
Thank
just also throw in, maybe if we find there's no agenda, we just cancel that week too. I don't think there's any harm in canceling a meeting if there's no agenda for the meeting either. I think we should be generous with ourselves and give ourselves that hour to do something else when we need to.
fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, just as long as, yeah, I think the key there is like having a kind of rhythm that people can rely on. And so if we found ourselves like continually canceling, then people wouldn't know whether or not to actually show up. But I think every once in a while, if we wanted to do that, I think that's fine. Okay, so any other things? I know NT wanted to cover the Curious Rabbits proposal. NT, we could talk about that right now if you think it's going to be relatively short. If it's going to be a little bit longer, maybe we leave it till the end. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I can make it short. So essentially, Curious Rabbit, who's been a software engineer, maybe, or at least he's been working in related stuff for some time now. He posted a proposal on the forum in about how he wants to make a one-stop shop for bonding curves that will come with some good materials to understand bonding curves, the different kinds of bonding curves. And it could be used by the TEC or the academy or whoever to make like a course in that or whatever it is. But the point really is that we haven't had a proposal in a while. I think it's important that we follow up, and so the proposal is up there. If anyone has any feedback or whatever he may want to, or you may want to say about it, just drop a note on the forum, and we should maybe on Thursday or via chat just speak a bit about how do we want to move it forward, like how much time do we take before telling him that it's good to move to conviction voting or whatever. Just not let him hanging up with the proposal there. That's it.
Yeah, it's a proposal, but I'm not convinced it's a good proposal. I read it, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to make any value judgment. I don't know. I just think that if you have any concerns with that, just feel free to post a comment. He seems to be willing to make or modify or shape the proposal however makes more sense to us.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him my feedback on it already. I can post it publicly, but I think the big challenge, I mean, I think there may be a number of challenges, but I think one of the biggest ones is you kind of can't just produce a course and then say, okay, I'm done. Like, I think, you have to find students, or you have to like plug into a place where there are students. And what I'm afraid, like, so first of all, NT, let me just say, I know what you're trying to do here, which is like, hey, man, we've got this common pool, and like this is the first grant that's come in for a proposal that's come in for a while. Like we can't just like not do anything. It just looks bad and it's just not right. So I think that's what you're saying is like from a process perspective, let's like, and especially as we're trying to figure out our grants, like how this looks in the future. So I think that's good. I can go up and say what I said to him, privately, which is I think that's the weakness that I see in this is if we were to fund this and he just built it and then nobody used it, that would be a complete waste of money. I was encouraging him to like try to work with the TEA to see if he could get that, get some connection there. But I know there's some complications. Other people have thoughts? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Nick.
I will also say that I agree. Like, Thank you, Inti, for bringing this up and making it a priority, because I do think that we need to have people who are aggressively supporting proposal creators when it comes to these initiatives, because there's a lot of people out there who are on the kind of cusp of wanting to do similar things like this. I know Maddie Tokenomics has created a complete, almost entire course on basic tokenomics stuff, and he's looking for funding as well. And so I think having the implications of opening the floodgates in terms of curriculum development is really an interesting problem that could emerge, because we just have a lot of people who are interested in developing curriculum, but we also don't, like Gideon said, have an application for it. And there's no kind of concerted effort for how we house it. And so I think that this is something that should be addressed publicly, and maybe I'll make a form response to it as well. But yeah, I think there's a lot of issues or potential issues that could come as a result of it. But I do think we need to aggressively support people who are looking for funding, and if we can't find it here, maybe we should solicit somewhere else. So yeah.
Can I ask a question if that's all right with regards to this? Is the curriculum building and the course building, is there any like market research done with regards to what courses are already out there and what people actually do want to learn about tokenomics, whether it's a beginner level or something a bit more deeper? Or is it just a thing where people say, oh, I think this is, from what I've heard of the ecosystem, this is what I think people want to learn? Because then with a bit more research and a bit more targeted audience funnel, then it will make it easier to kind of like grant, okay, these are for people that want to learn token engineering for DAOs, or these want to learn about AMAs and whatever the case is.
Yeah, I don't know in this particular case whether that was done, but I do know that the Token Engineer Academy has a process. Angela has a process for like checking with advisors on kind of like what's hot, and checking in with students on kind of what is hot. But I don't think it's like broad-based research, is my sense. Okay, so let's move on. Actually, NT, I made a note too that I think, especially as you're looking as part of the Common Pool kind of reformation, that work, that basically I think we're missing a role, which is somebody to kind of help steward proposals along and kind of like help people through that process. That's been an issue for a while, and so I think we should add that as part of the requirements. Okay, let's move on. Nate, are you ready to take us through the Schelling Point Initiative?
Yeah, I am. Let me pull it up. Okay, so share my screen here. One of the big, I just wanted to present this to everybody to get feedback, to kind of get everybody's thoughts, ideas, and if anybody has any questions. The Schelling Point Initiative is kind of this idea that we've been working on in terms of ushering in this new era of kind of externally facing token engineering initiative. We want to kind of effort to consolidate the token engineering community, bring us closer together. And so I wanted to go through this. If you have any questions at any point, please just let me know. But yeah, we'll go through it pretty quick. So what we'll cover is understanding the problems of what we're trying to solve, the kind of how we align that with the foundational goals in the TEC. We'll go over an overview of it, the introduction to interest in research groups, understanding TEC sponsorship, product integrations, and finally the roadmap. So one of the big things that we wanted to kind of put into context is understanding the problems with current token engineering initiatives, and in particular in the research field. There's a lot of siloed pursuits within the field of token engineering that have resulted in a duplication of research and development and an over-allocation of public funding towards similar objectives. And so this is something that I think, we have a lot of projects and communities that are all working on their own siloed research initiatives, and being able to bring them together to offer an opportunity for collaboration is something that I think is really, really important problem to solve within the field of token engineering. There's also a lack of clarity and understanding regarding the needs of token engineering research and development. And so I think that the kind of highlighting the areas where we need further development and research is something that we can be contributing towards. And then lastly, open source progress is kind of shrouded behind GitHub repositories that lack visibility and engagement. And so making sure that these types of advancements are shared and public and accessible to to everybody else, I think is really, really important for kind of token engineering. And aligning that with kind of these kind of 4 broad goals that I've articulated, and this is by no means comprehensive or consensus around this, but these are the things that I've been thinking about and trying to keep in alignment of the foundational goals for the TEC, which is education, TE associations and partnerships, impact funding, and knowledge curation. And so we want to try to solve these problems that are in alignment with these foundational goals that we have within the TEC. And so we intend to do that through the use of the Schelling Point Initiative, which is an attempt to bring the efforts of the token engineering community closer together and to provide a central point of coordination. So the SPI is centered around 3 independent objectives. The first one is to become a catalyst for growth and development for the next generation of token engineers. We want to do this by creating awareness among online communities and individuals of the educational research opportunities that exist within the TE community. The second one is solving token engineering problems for OSS and Web3 communities. So the development of research groups will kind of enable the ability to perform independent research and develop new best practices and standards. And then the last one is aggregating case studies, research models, academic education for the token engineering knowledge commons, which can be done through the curation service. So with these three objectives, we hope to kind of help solve some of these problems and further the foundational goals of the TEC. We want to introduce the idea of interest groups and research groups. Interest groups, of course, are kind of this, the simple way to get involved in the token engineering community. Newcomers come learn the basic building blocks with experienced token engineers. Research groups are a different kind of animal. They're the best way for new and experienced token engineers to build their portfolio and kind of work within these decentralized research environments. There will be a lot less rules associated with research groups. They're going to have more independence and autonomy to operate how they want, but we want to make sure that we're funneling human capital, financial capital towards these efforts as well. One of the best things that we can do is community onboarding. We want to be able to not only host and offer to host both interest groups and research groups within the TEC Discord, but we want to learn to meet people where they're at. Going to different communities and making sure that they have their own core group of people that they want to work with is really important, that they meet on their own terms and don't have to go to somebody else's server and navigate a whole different platform, if you will. And I think that interest groups, there's a lot of incentives with interest groups as a method for community growth. So if you offer an interest group on a particular subject, and we can funnel people to your Discord and you can start to grow your community, there's a natural incentive there to participate in these types of groups. But at the end of the day, what we want to understand is, what is the incentive for me to participate with the TEC? Why should I partner with the TEC in creating an interest group or a research group or sharing any information about that? So we have the TEC sponsorship, which is going to be kind of this a way for us to provide onboarding services, promotional resources, and informational pages that will support and promote the success of those groups that are participating. Additionally, we're going to look into integrating TEC products and features. Right now, the idea is to have kind of this kind of a landing page, if you will, of all of the interest groups and research groups that are currently in existence, and having them, up here and paneled, and having their schedule out, joining an interest group, having the schedule out, being able to apply for it, just having a kind of a page where people can go to and say, hey, I want to participate in some type of token engineering community. I can go and look and see what research opportunities are available. I can see what interest groups are available. Find a little home for me to participate and contribute towards token engineering, and to kind of further my career. And I think this is a really good opportunity for not only token engineering students, but anybody who is just genuinely interested in participating in the TE and Web3 community. So another big aspect of this is the products and features. We really need to create good incentives for people to participate in a TEC-sponsored research or interest group. And I think that the integration of 3 products, the first one being the inverter network, second, curation service and praise, are all going to be really, really important products that will create the right incentives for communities to kind of come together and participate in this. Of course, the first one is the inverter network. For those of you who don't understand the inverter network, the proposal inverter is a funding primitive that enables multiple groups of individuals to collaborate on common proposals. So you can co-fund research together, you can do many things, and it has built-in transparency and accountability processes within the proposal inverter. We funded it here originally in the TEC. So there's an incentive for research groups in particular, especially if they're working on very similar objectives, TE objectives, to collaborate with one another, to house themselves under the same roof and solicit funding through the proposal inverter network. And so this will also provide another incentive for grant-making bodies to become more willing to fund these initiatives because of the accountability and transparency processes, and removes the need for in-house funding from a single entity for research efforts that multiple projects may be seeking to achieve. So I think this is one of the incentives that say, hey, if you're a research group, come participate in the TEC sponsored research groups, because we have these resources for you. We can get you connected to the inverter network and have people external funding potentially for your research efforts. The second one is the curation service, of course, which is a simple bot that records input from community activity via communication channels. We want this to be kind of the development of the token engineering knowledge commons to use as a database used for TE curriculum development. And there's a lot of potential use cases, as Gideon put before. And I think it has a ton of potential if we can get it implemented within other communities. And lastly is the praise system. This is small financial incentive for the participants within the research and interest groups, but it also allows us to expand the amount of participants within TEC governance, and making sure that the people who are participating in there are TE oriented and part of other TE communities. And so I think there's a lot of potential with integrating these 3 different products into this initiative of research and interest groups that can create the right incentives for this to really grow. And so the current roadmap right now is we're just getting over the ideation phase, and thankfully Joseph has been helping me a lot with the infrastructure phase as we start to build out the documentation infrastructure for the SPI. And then we move on to the product phase, making sure that we have kind of at least an MVP of all 3 of those product integrations. And then we move on to the partnership phase within May and June, where we really try to grow and enter into multiple different communities. Now, this is kind of just like the first, iteration of this initiative, but I kind of wanted to share my vision for it, because I do think this is one step in the right direction in terms of being more externally focused and bringing the TE community closer together. And so, yeah, at this point in time, I just want to end it there. And if you have any thoughts or questions or anything like that, just, let me know.
The only thought that I was gonna have, and it was more like a suggestion, but I think you mentioned something like this to me before, in a prior one-on-one meeting. But definitely having like a library sort of thing would help. Would help something like this as well. If we're going to create like a home for people to come and be part of research groups and interest groups as well, and as well as being like a kind of bridge and source for people to have knowledge for like token engineering and stuff like that. That's the only thing I'll kind of like add.
Yeah, I think the curation service in particular has a lot of potential to host that type of knowledge. The idea is to have multiple inputs from multiple token engineering communities and research groups who are focusing on, whether it be smart contract audits, whether it be, development of, bonding curves, solidity, whatever it may be that they're focusing on, that they could have embedded practices that we encourage, literature review at the beginning of their meetings, the meetups, to use the curation service within their Discord to have multiple inputs to a single database on the back end that we can specifically curate for the token engineering community. And I think that the potential to productize this later down the road is something that is a huge potential to help out the TE community to give access to this broader scope of TE knowledge.
Well, I'll just jump in and say, I think this is really exciting vision. I really do, Nate. I think it's great. I think one of the big questions in my mind, but this is not like this can't be done, but I think it's like, how do we do it? Is the outreach. So how do we reach out to this group of people who you're talking about here? How do we find them? And how do we start to just slowly build, some early success, like case studies or like some early areas of focus? I think it's kind of like the outreach part of it. That would be good to fill in some of the details, I think.
Yeah, and this is something that's really interesting. Because as I started a list of different places to be looking at. The Y Academy with Yearn, they've got a lot of really interesting research groups built in already. There's a lot of different communities that have research groups that exist currently, and making sure, kind of getting in contact with them and seeing just kind of how they feel about this type of initiative. Because a lot of research groups, they have their, solid team. And I talked to one group already, and it's not like that they would want to have this open to the public. They've got their team, and maybe they need data analysts, for example, maybe they can promote that within this dashboard or informational page that they have that say, hey, if you're interested in your data analyst and you want to apply to be a part of this research group, we can help with that as well. And so I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics in terms of the outreach of how can we best support these groups and kind of connect them with the right people. And where interest groups are really kind of just, hey, this is a really good way to grow your community by connecting them with this kind of central point of attention.
First of all, Nate, I also really like the overall vision and the idea, and how will you structure it by phases and by different objectives. I think it really makes a lot of sense to the overall strategy that we're pursuing. Just to follow up a little bit on the side, I guess on the communications maybe side of it, it would be more of a question like, when, for example, in this roadmap, when do you think it would be like the right time to start becoming more like outward facing in terms of outreach? Do you think that should start like right away, or do you think you need to have like certain maybe the documentation, like the infrastructure phase and the product phase maybe done first before starting to have some outreach? And on that same line, are you thinking maybe to also have like some sort of pilot for research groups and for interest groups to really have just maybe like one group of each and try to really put all the energy and all the effort to make them grow, succeed, and kind of like prove the overall thesis? Or are you thinking more to open it up and see what comes up like more organically?
Yeah, in terms of the roadmap, actually, this is something that's really kind of difficult because the outreach aspect of it, we want to have the incentives. Of course, there's going to be some groups that are ready to participate. They're value aligned, they know the TEC. Maybe some groups within the Token Engineering Academy might participate. However, the other ones, we may need to have the product phase to making sure that we can incorporate praise or curation service, or the inverter network is something that might be like why they participate in the first place. And so having those things ready before we outreach to these communities would probably be very beneficial, but not necessary. So I assume that we're going to be working kind of in parallel, reaching out, making sure that we're contacting communities that are centered around research groups and interest groups, and kind of engaging that. We are going to have kind of a pilot with a voting systems interest group, and Rex, I know that you've had interest in the TE data analytics interest group. So we're going to try those things out, and then if there are already built-in groups that are ready to participate, we're going to add them to the list as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, on the T. Hi everyone. I know you haven't heard my voice for, I haven't heard your voices for, it sounds like, forever. Yes, the T data interest group. I have really not kept up with it, but we've just been following a metric style course, and there's like 4 or 5 of us just going ahead and doing that. And once that's done, we'll be hacking away at some Giveth. We'll be doing some stuff for Giveth because what's her name? Is it Carl? Anyway, one of our members wants to do it, so why not? Yeah, I'm not too sure. I haven't really followed what's up, but I'm happy to contribute and to align it more with the roadmap.
Yeah, and I didn't know if was there a question I missed in there, Bear, or did I get to everything?
Yeah, I think for me it was pretty clear. Yeah, thank you, Nate.
Okay, yeah, and I just wanted to add, in terms of communication and narrative and stuff like that, Joseph has really been a huge help in terms of crafting that narrative and making sure that we have kind of this communication and infrastructure built for documentation to onboard new groups and to kind of keep them engaged.
I just want to jump in. As you're talking about the onboarding, Nate, and you're showing the slides and all that, it keep coming to my mind the body system that Giveth has, where they like contributors and new people that's going to start working with Giveth. They have this body who helps them and like be with them for some time. And I was thinking about that and how like that can help onboarding new contributors to the TC. I remember when I first came to the TC, I was very lost on everything, even like basic stuff. What is Web3 and all this? Because TC was my first connection to Web3 and DAOs and all that. So I was just thinking about how nice could be to like have somebody that you can just ask questions and not feel that you are kind of like being a pain in their ass.
Yeah, this is something that Joseph brought up as well, like in terms of just like how do we maintain the relationships once we start building this community and this network, and how do we kind of make sure that everybody is satisfied and feels supported, especially when it comes to interest groups and research groups. And that it might be a kind of a tall task, and maybe a dedicated person to actually manage that. And thinking about putting that within the recurring tasks of the interest groups. And so it's something on my mind in terms of how to solve, but haven't solved it yet. So yeah, any thoughts or ideas or solutions, please send them my way.
Okay, so just an agenda check here. We've got just about 15 minutes more, and we've got a couple other things we want to cover today. Any last pieces of feedback for Nate before we move on? Okay, and Nate, maybe what you can do is provide a place for people to provide some feedback, kind of async, once you get this a little bit further along. And obviously it'll go up through advice process, and it'll go probably a forum post, I'm imagining, at some point. Okay, thanks, Nate. That's really cool. Very exciting. And I think it does tie in a lot of the stuff that we're working on. So that's really cool. Okay, so we're gonna go. Hey Rex, how much time do you need for your update?
Not too much, really. Just like a couple of minutes to give these. In fact, I can do a speed run, and if you do have any
Yeah.
questions, you can sort of ask me, or I'll do something later on. So, first of all, with credentials, I'm going to turn it into sort of a more serious process. So I'm going to need 2 other people to go ahead with the platform man, which will be a separate account, to just take in all of these requests and essentially give 2 nods. Have 2 nods in order to give any credential out, and that one's I'm gonna try and do that via the ticket bot, and you'll see it in our category. I've just unhidden it so it's visible for everyone. Of course, the you've seen the Dune dashboard is done, but it's missing images. So if anybody sort of has those or has an idea of what I can stick on that one, that'd be awesome. I've been trying to make the share it bot work, but it has been a pain in the neck, to say the least. It was not. I have wasted a lot of time, and it wasn't built for someone else to turn it on. Let's just say. So my understanding is that Shah is gonna. They didn't have, like, say, a .env, a proper .env I could do, and there was lots of issues. So my understanding is they're gonna get it working from their side, and in future we can revisit to self-hosting once it's in a position, it's organized well enough that someone else can self-host it. I think that's it for my updates. Any questions? It took 2 minutes. Hey, there you go.
Nice job, Rex. Thank you. There is an update. We can share it with you. Auntie and I will share it with you. We just got an update from Shahar, and we're going to be talking with them tomorrow. So we'll give you an update on that. And it's good, actually. They are fixing some stuff right now. Okay, let's talk about this. What we've been kind of hinting at for the last month or so. Basically what we've got is for the coordination team, think of it as like coordination workflows for the TEC. And, some of them are fixed, kind of like known things that we know we need to do and we need to do on a regular basis. It's kind of like repetitive workflows. Those, thanks to Bear, we've come up with a whole bunch of roles that are fairly discrete roles that we can swap around if people want to change roles over time. If people leave, we can, we'll know that there's a role that needs to be filled. Most of that work is pretty much done at this point. And so the next part of the workflow that we needed to focus on is like new things, right? So emergent workflows that the TEC needs to do, maybe just like a one-time thing, like, hey, we need to get a profile up for the latest Gitcoin round or whatever it is, right? Or it may be something that's kind of big, like working on, say, the common pool, like the kind of the changes to the common pool and the way we manage that. So that we're doing through a project management process. What we've been working on is basically coming up with a way that a way of organizing ourselves within the coordination team so that we can remain somewhat fluid, but then also still have some direction. And the idea is there will be like some things that are like bigger initiatives that are longer term in nature, and then some that are shorter term in nature. And the longer term initiatives are goals that will have like mini milestones that will break out like month by month. So what we were trying to figure out is like, well, how do we do this, and how do we go about figuring out what those priorities are on a monthly basis? So what we're moving into now is basically a process where it's like, okay, we will by the middle of the month, so like by the middle of February, we'll be thinking about what March's priorities are going to be. And, as a relatively small team, we're not going to have like 20 priorities, right? It'll be like 4, maybe 5, priorities that we'll be working on. And we'll be using that as a way to kind of like drive the resource allocation. So the coordination team will be doing that kind of work of like trying to bubble up, like figure out what those priorities are. We'll be getting ideas from this larger group here, right, on the Tuesday meetings, the Tuesday calls. And then also we'll be coming to you all in this larger format to just kind of get some feedback. Like does this seem right? Does this seem like kind of like a good allocation? So for example, we've got just 10 minutes left today, but we're not going to go into a whole lot of depth on this one. This is kind of like our practice run this month. But for February, which is starting tomorrow, what we're looking at is, you can see it on the notes here, the agenda, that making changes to the way that we manage the common pool. We started talking about that with Griff week before last week. I can't even remember. But basically talking about effectively switching off conviction voting through some changes to the parameters, and then moving to DAO voting, and then looking at some other options like Gitcoin grants protocol, small grants rounds, that kind of stuff. So that's something that NT is going to be driving as the project lead on that. The other one is the Schelling Point initiative that you just heard Nate talking about. And then the other one is the Token Engineering Academy partnership, figuring that out, what that's going to look like. And then there's what we're calling review period, which is basically the accountability system for all of this stuff. It's like, how do we make sure that the individuals on the team, on the coordination team, are being accountable for the work that they've signed up to do, whether it's a role or a project. And then how does the whole team then roll up and be accountable to the community, aside from just the the funding requests that we do on a go forward basis? What is that going to look like? So that's what Bear is working on. So you can see in the agenda here that we've done some kind of rough allocations of resources, 25% for the common pool, 25% for the Schelling Point initiative, 20% for the TEA, the Token Engineering Academy, and then 15% for the review period work, and then always having some type of buffer for like 15% to be able to handle miscellaneous stuff that comes. So let me just stop there and see if there are questions about any of this or comments before we go on to have Bear kind of look at the budgeting process and what the implications are for the budget. Any comments or questions?
I guess my question is, as things start to evolve, do we just kind of, in terms of pitching the priorities each month, do we just say, kind of have this discussion at the end of each month and say, hey, what exactly is the reasoning behind this this distribution and then kind of come to consensus around it, or is this kind of like we need to have a formal like proposal process to say, hey, we want this much of this monthly budget for these reasons, and then I don't know. I guess how public should this be, or should this just strictly be an internal discussion?
Yeah, good question. So the way we did it on Thursday was we just basically, not super scientific, but it was helpful. We basically asked people to kind of like do their own allocation, right? So we did kind of a wisdom of crowds kind of thing. And we just took everybody's and we said, okay, well, this is, Bear and I went through and like took that and said like, because we're kind of rushing right now to get this done for February, we said like, this is good enough, right? So we took that, we took in some mitigating factors. You can't just rely exactly on that. So for example, the Token Engineering Academy partnership, a lot of that is, that's very important to us. But, at this point in time, there's not like a need for a lot of people on that. It's really more just like one person. So rather than that being like 40%, that was like 20%. So I think the next phase of this will be, it might look more like what you just did with the Schelling Point Initiative, Nate. It's like, people kind of like present the kind of the main initiatives. Some will be new, most will not be new. They'll be like multi-month. And then I think what we'll do is, do something like that kind of allocation thing, but probably with this larger group. Still TBD though, what that looks like exactly. Other comments or thoughts? No?
No, it sounds it sounds pretty good. Uh, yeah, it's more of a sprint. It's more of a monthly sprint than like a very long term like deal, but it makes sense. I haven't been here for a while, so it's a surprises the changes. They look pretty positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're basically trying to like be pretty responsive, like try like not turn this into like a super heavy duty process, but like use it as a way of getting feedback and then just keep moving. So this is the challenge we're gonna have, is like, planning, but then keeping it light. So yeah, I think sprint is a good way of describing a monthly sprint. Okay, Bear, would you like to take the last 5 minutes to kind of help people understand how this affects the budgeting process?
Sure, yeah. If Gideon, if you could maybe share the document I just shared on the chat, just to share on screen. So we can go through the budget pretty quickly. I think it's been good overall since last Thursday. We did some adjustments. For example, if you look on the yellow row that says available budget, it used to be like 8,000, but right now we were able to boost it up to 10,000. Hopefully, I'm hoping to increase it even a little bit more, depending on how much we spend for January. That's still to be determined. I'm hoping to have that number by today, so that will still probably have a little impact on the overall budget. But then on the roles, I think it's almost pretty certain the amounts that the amounts that we're gonna have for February. Maybe I was just hearing that we might just need to come up with another role for the common pool and kind of like following up with proposals on the forum. I think that would be important to include maybe some initial sort of version of it, and maybe that has a little impact on that. But based on these numbers, right now, we came up with a final budget for projects in February of around 3,000 DAI. So if you go to the project budget allocation tab, Gideon, there we can see kind of like what you were showing right now on the agenda. These are kind of like the initiatives with the corresponding project budget that we have, and now it's just a matter of deciding how are we going to allocate it. So just taking this example of the 25 25 20 15 15, those are kind of like the numbers that we're coming up with. And the idea is that once we have agreed with these numbers, then the people working on each of these projects, they will have the autonomy and the flexibility to then start allocating those funds by individual that participates in the project. So that's going to be also pretty interesting. Right now, the first step is just defining the percentages for the project themselves. So yeah, I don't know if we will have chance to maybe get some comments on that front for how do people feel about using these percentages, or if we should just take it async.
I think that's a really awesome process. I think we might need more clarity on the distribution aspect of it. So from what you're saying, the people who are kind of the leads on these projects would be responsible for the distribution of those funds to contributors and people within the project. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's do this. We have 1 minute left. So this was more just a kind of a way of introducing this to folks, like what this process looks like. So basically, individual incomes will be a mix of roles combined with work on projects. We're trying to like have the roles help to solidify people's income so that they can have like something that they can count on. We also want to be able to flux as projects come and go. So this is the kind of the tension between these kind of basic project-based funding and role-based funding. So we can dive into this more next week if folks are interested. Maybe if people want more details on this, just mention it in the contributors channel, and we'll add some more details into next week's meeting. But having said that, we're now at the top of the hour, so we'll stop here. And I want to thank everybody for coming today, and thanks for the good questions. Nate, thanks for presenting. And yeah, we'll see you all next week. Some of you before then. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Gideon.
Thank you, Gideon. Thank you,
Everyone.
everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah.